When they call Jesus was a Mason, the issue people are having with that secret is that they don't see in the Bible that it explicitly states that Jesus was a Mason. That's because that order wasn't referred to as Masonry in that book at that time. The Masons are referred to as the Essenes, who were led by a being called the teacher or the messenger of righteousness, and that translates from Hebrew as Malaika Sadiq, which becomes Melchizedek. In the biblical scriptures, you will find that Jesus was raised up in that same order. That's Hebrews 7:17. For he testifieth, thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. And this being who is called Jesus also took an oath to be a part of that order. Hebrews 7:20. And insomuch as not without an oath he was made priest. There were sacred brotherhoods active in that time, both BC and AD. And stories like the story of Lazarus were alluding to those brotherhoods. Jesus initiated Lazarus into the order. In other words, Lazarus was pulled out of death by Jesus. This was a Masonic ritual. This was not a literal story. People are constantly being raised from the dead and initiated into the order of the truth, the light, and the way, the head, the heart, and the hara, the faith, the hope, and the charity. 1, 2, 3. As in the 3 levels from the lower room to the upper room. Tear down my body, and in 3 days I will rise it again. This is referring to the 3 degrees of Masonry. John 3:3. You must be born again. Why do you think it was placed in John 3:3? Jesus was of the mystic orders and the mystery schools and was raised from the death. The one they called Jesus was a Mason. The issue people are having with that secret is that they don't see into as the Essenes, who were led by a being called the
Proof the woman is God using masonry. The emblem itself is the double X chromosome. And you might have even heard the borderline breakdowns that say that Mason is my son, as in the mother and the son. But they're forgetting something, because if you are Masonic, you are adhering to the sound of that ma or that wa, which becomes the water, or the matter becomes the mater, which is also the mito, as in mitochondrial DNA, as you call mitochondrial Eve, which would have been the beginning. Well, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, but in the beginning, God did not create the waters, because that was not the God of the beginning that you would have been speaking about. That God would have been the woman, which was the water or the mater or the womb that man came from. So let's look at the word Masonic or Masonic. What is the sonic, as in the sound of the ma or the water or the mother or the matter? That sound of that water is the Om sound. If you need proof of that, all you have to do is submerge yourself in a body of water. And when you do so, you're going to hear that sound. Om. Put your hands over your ears and you will hear the same type of sound. And that sound is called the basic sound of the universe, the beginning sound. We as human beings come through the water in the womb to get into this life. As a Mason, when you become a traveler, you have to actually be born again, as you will find in John chapter 3, verse 3. And in order for you to be born again, you have to die. And if you die and have to be born again, you have to also come through that water. And that water is tied to the mother. So now that you can see that this emblem is actually the double X chromosome, and human beings were supposed to have come from some being that looked like them, as we were made in the image and after the likeness of whoever this guy or these guys were. The only way that could have been possible is if these beings were women.
You go from John chapter 1:9, you'll find the true light. Lucifer, Shaitan meant to oppose or go against. And you know that Shaitan was the god of the world, according to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. And he was the one who caused everybody to be blinded and confused. If he was the one who brought deception to the whole world, there was somebody else who brought truth to the world. And whatever information they were bringing, that was the light. Somebody is lying to you, that doesn't mean they don't know the truth. So Lucifer also held the true light. He knew the true light. He beheld the true light. He was right there in the heaven before he was cast down. I beheld Lucifer. Lucifer, how did you fall? How did you lose your place in the hierarchy or in the heavens? When you have Lucifer bringing forth the light, he could tell the truth or he could tell a fallacy. He chose to be a liar. Of course, Jesus was a part of the occult. He was raised up in Kemet, where the occult practices were first being taught. The mirror occult, mirror, the light, or the pyramid occult, which is hidden. So when you say miracle, you're saying hidden light or hidden information. So you get into whether or not Jesus was bringing forth the true light and whether or not Shaitan was bringing forth the false light. What was Jesus referred to as? The Son of God, or the morning sun, or the morning star. It's the same way you're saying Lucifer. This is where you get into the confusing conversation that people are having. They saying Jesus is Lucifer. Jesus is not Lucifer. And then you go from John chapter 1.
This book right here, purchase it if you want.
And people people that get up in high positions, you wonder, how do they get in them positions?
This book right here, purchase it if you want to do your own investigation, and you will not find those signs and all that up in here. Let me make that clear. Right, I got some books here, right? Kind of ashamed to admit, but I was a Mason. At one time, I was a Freemason. That's why I know a lot of this stuff. These are some of the reference books that I have. Let me make that clear. This book right here,
The Prince Hall Masons and the Elks. These are the secret societies in the hood that you don't even know that they here. These are the people, these are your councilmen and your aldermen and people that get up in high positions, and you wonder, how do they get in them positions?
this book right here, purchase it if you want to do your own investigation, and you will not find those signs and all that up in here. Let me make that clear. Right, I got some books here, right? Kind of ashamed to admit, but I was a Mason. At one time, I was a Freemason. That's why I know a lot of this stuff. Kind of ashamed to admit, but I was a Mason. At one time, I was a Freemason. That's why I know a lot of this stuff. Kind of ashamed to admit, but I was a Mason. At one time, I was a Freemason. That's why I know a lot of this stuff.
Kind of ashamed to admit, but I was a Mason. At one time, I was a Freemason. That's why I know a lot of this stuff.
These are some of the reference books that I have.
My grandfather was
dangerous, but it's not physically dangerous. Another reason why it can be a problem is that it is one of the chakras in the body. You have the root, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. If you have blockages in any of the other chakras, and then you don't resolve those blockages and you try to open this one, then you're going to have a whole mess of an imbalance, and that sometimes leads to what people may perceive as a little bit like a break, a little spell of insanity, because the circuit board, because remember it's all your central nervous system, is not able to process all of that energy flow that is taking place. So I think it's an important thing to be guided in this area, or just to leave it alone and let it happen naturally. Well, that's an excellent question, especially within the context of what we've experienced over the last 2.5 years.
confusion, sometimes confusing because they're so real, and then those vivid dreams mix with your regular dreams, and it creates a lot of confusion in your waking life. Another thing that happens is that you are able to feel or access other realms. Now, that part is scary, because when you're able to access them and you don't understand, then you're vulnerable. And so you can have negative entities or positive entities being attracted or drawn to you, or you experiencing them. That can be scary. So this is why people say, don't go that way, because it makes when your third eye is open, you're more vulnerable to the movement or being able to access the different realms, and of course whatever comes with those realms, right? Now, all of us were cultured to stay on the straight and narrow and don't delve into anything that can, yeah? And this is why they've called it dangerous. It's not really dangerous. It's not going to harm you in any way. It's dangerous to society because no, it means that
no African blood. You got nigger, pow. The white man has convinced you that there is absolutely nothing black and African that is good, positive, progressive, or will be successful. And that's why you got Negroes talking about they Cherokee Indians, they not from Africa. You got Negroes talking about they Choctaw Indians, they not from Africa. You got Negroes talking about they Seminole Indians with no African blood. You got Negroes talking about they from Mexico and Canada and anywhere but Africa because of self-hatred. Okay? If anybody has been brainwashed into thinking you're not from Africa, please go read Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. Please go read Dr. Yusuf Ben Yakinen. Please go read the books on not only they came before Columbus, African presence in early America, ancient African voyages to America. There's a whole library of research, real, authentic, documented research on the African voyages to America before Columbus, the African civilizations in America before Columbus, the African artifacts found in America before Columbus. It is undeniable. It is undeniable that we were here first. We were everywhere first. And if you are an African in this country, you do not descend from Native Americans, you descend from Native Africans. The Native Africans from Africa populated this country before the so-called Native American crossed the Bering Strait. And it was those Asiatics who crossed the Bering Strait, came to America, found us here, and we interbred with the Native Americans who came across the Bering Strait from Asia, and that's how you get your modern mixed race Native American population. That is how you get your modern mixed race Native American population. The red man is a mixture of the black man and the brown man. The red man is a mixture of the black man of Africa and the brown man of Asia. We were here first, but we came from Africa. And if anyone doesn't believe the truth, go do your research. The books are there. I don't know why y'all take instruction from uncredentialed, untrained, YouTubian armchair scholars. I don't understand why y'all take instruction from untrained, uncredentialed, YouTube scholars, these people who are telling you you're not from Africa, haven't published any documentation, have not done any research, have not been trained at any university on how to do the research, and you accept what they say to be truth. That's on you. I know who I am, and I know where I come from.
Some of the Ten Commandments, all that comes out of that. And that was already ancient. Let me say this. That was already in existence in ancient Kosh before Kemet even came into existence.
In the African traditions, throughout, as we see these traditions emanate in ancient Kemet, if you look at it in West Africa with the Ewe, who have a word which is voodoo Gadza, it means the essence of man as God. And what they say in this tradition, in the Ewe people of Togo and of Ghana, they say that they migrated from the east. They said that they speak the language of ancient Kemet. And so they said the tradition they practice is the ancient Kemetic tradition. And this is what they're saying today.